Welcome to Productize. This is about data products. I'm going to start a little bit with a little bit about kind of data maturity and how that fits with data products, and then we'll get into the real topic, which I promise will make more sense for those of you who got popcorn a moment ago. So a little bit about data and AI maturity. We always see curves like this, right? Going from descriptive analytics to prescriptive analytics, et cetera. Everyone wants to move up and to the right. The idea being that there's more value to be had the more analytic power you put behind something. So we start with having clean data, which is a challenge for a number of organizations. There are certainly plenty of vendors, including ourselves at Databricks, who would love to help you with getting to a point of clean data in your organization. And then moving on to descriptive statistics, exploratory analysis, predictive modeling, and so forth. The idea being that you're starting to automate more of your decision making and getting more value out of your data. That's not just you. As a product-based data team, you're maybe sharing these products with others, whether that's within your organization or even at third parties. So you end up seeing something a little more like this. Data products being seen as source data files that you might send right now via SFTP or APIs, all the way through to cognitive automation, the interactive chatbots that you could purchase or build for yourselves, the types of video recognition systems and IVRs and so forth. These are derived data products. So you start with having these sources where you've got clean information, you're sharing that out, whether that, again, that's internal to other lines of business or to external partners. Or as you move through the spectrum, you could have descriptive statistics and dashboards that get shared. You could have self-service environments where people can do their own exploratory analysis. These are also derived data products. And so as you think about the ecosystem of data products, you're really creating more value and more customized, tailored information for your consumers. But what I really want to talk about today is popcorn. For those of you who got bags of popcorn, this is why. And so as much as I love data, I really love popcorn. I was the kind of kid that got in trouble with my parents because I would eat popcorn for lunch and then they found out and were very upset. But really it means that I get to talk about popcorn for 30 minutes and no one can stop me, ha ha ha. So what's it take to make a product like popcorn? Well, you start with ingredients. Right? Or really you start with an idea of what you're trying to do. With popcorn, you're trying to make a delicious snack. Whether that's for folks who are going to the movies or people at home who just want something to nosh on, you're wanting to solve a problem, a market problem. And you start with figuring out what that is, and then building a product, figuring out what it's going to take to build that. There's ingredients that go into it. Those ingredients have to be processed. They have to be labeled. You have to merchandise it, or you got to sell it somewhere. There are life cycles, so over time you might decide that sweet and salty kettle corn isn't the best option. I don't know who would ever decide that. They are wrong, but someone can come at me after this if they really want to go for that. You could go for salty instead, you could go for caramel, whatever. And then you have life cycles of that product, right? You version it, and then people get to consume it. That's the best part for me, especially with popcorn. When it comes to data, we have a very similar type of paradigm. The ingredients of your data products are your data supply chain, and you want to make sure that you're tracing that with lineage. There's labeling, where you create tags and attributes around your data, and you manage those tags, you manage the labels, you process the data. You want to be able to flexibly process that, whether you get to a point where you need to have more, right? You have more data coming in. We're at Big Data London after all. So you have the opportunity to scale up your data, scale out your data, maybe scale it down, change products, merchandise it. Where are people going to find it, right? We have catalogs, we have marketplaces, we have all kinds of different ways that you can find data. We have to put those products into a place where our consumers can see them. We have life cycles of products, which to us sounds like version control, right? So if you previously were making only salty popcorn and now you're making kettle corn, big improvement. You end up having a new version of that product. And then you have your consumption points. Where can you consume? How do you consume that data? How do you consume that product? So we'll talk about these a little one at a time. First, data has ingredients. And whereas we have corn and oil and salt and sugar in this one, in data, those ingredients are like your contract with your consumer. It's the stuff that's going into it. So it's like having the ingredients label on the back of your package. What is it that fed into this product? Where did this data come from, or where did this analytic product come from? You have to understand that source, track how it's been changed over the course of creating the product, changing the combinations, and also monitoring the quality, right? Just as a consumer product like popcorn gets monitored as well. You don't want burnt popcorn in your bag after all. So you have to kind of monitor these things and make sure that the contract you've set, the expectation that you've set with your data consumers is now being followed, that you're living up to your side of the bargain. You have labels. So just like we have, in this case, no artificial colors, it's vegan product, it's gluten-free, it's kosher. These types of things are identifiers for easily recognizing whether this product is something that I as a consumer would be able to consume. Is it appropriate for me? In the same way, a data product has tags. So we would use metadata to describe PII or regionally specific data or ethical boundaries of use. So for example, if you create a chatbot and you say this really isn't to be used on the wider internet, it's only to be used in our website. This is the only place it's applicable. Otherwise, things could go very awry. Ask Tay sometime. Make sure that you're setting up these tags so that people know whether it's appropriate for them to use your product. I've also put in here a level of processing. If you're internally using your products, you have your lines of business leveraging your products, you might give certain groups access to more raw data, right? So they may get the popcorn kernels instead of the bag of pre-popped popcorn. Why? Because they may be trying out a new process. They may be trying to make caramel corn. Good on them for doing so. I fully approve. So in this case, you'd want to be able to showcase who gets what and whether that's appropriate for them to have. Then you have to actually process that information, those ingredients. I found this, I have no idea what some of these machines are. I assume they pop popcorn. I don't know. There's one that says sugar cylinder and I'm here for it. So this is basically your pipeline, whether large or small. How do you scale your processing? You have to use the right tools for the job to smooth out your production line, right? So each of these processes, each of these steps is broken down where you can start to combine different ingredients, combining batches and streams. I think of it like the old school air poppers that would like spit out popcorn one kernel at a time versus these monsters, which I presume are just like churning out batches of humongous tubs of popcorn. Improving your structure and quality. So thinking about how that product is going to change and adding the oil to make sure that the popcorn kernels pop, those sorts of things. And then adding differentiating and value-added features. So whereas here we're talking about a sugar cylinder that will create kettle corn for us, in a data product, that might be a predictive analysis, a score, a prescriptive recommendation that's added to additional data as a value add. Right? This is something that makes a unique data product and it makes it more valuable to your consumer. Next, we have to make it easy for our consumers to find our product. This is where merchandising and marketing comes in. Now, just like you have websites and store shelves and word of mouth, in a data product, you might have a data catalog that serves like a website would, where people can come in and search for information. In those data catalogs, you put metadata, just like you would tag up a website with search engine optimization. Same concept, right? Same metadata. But here, what we're looking for is to provide enough insight into our data consumers to ensure that they're finding things that are valuable to them. They can browse through a marketplace. They can look at the store shelves essentially and say, yep, that's the one I want. I'm going to check the labels. I'm going to look at those ingredients and I'm going to find exactly the right popcorn for me. I mean, data. Then you have things like word of mouth, and it might seem weird, but this is something that, most businesses love word of mouth. It's free advertising, right? For us, it's actually usually seen as a negative because here, what we're really thinking about is how do I go ask my colleague what I should use? which is like the antithesis of scale. And so as much as word of mouth is great, what you actually want is a knowledge management system, somewhere that you've codified this information so that you don't have to go asking people, where do I find the thing? What's the best source? That should, in theory, be codified, which is why in a lot of tools that you can do reviews of data. So even for data products, you could have a quality score. You could have a usage score. You could look at the lineage of downstream usage that indicates where people are using this information. Is this widely adopted? So that it becomes a more scalable solution for that word of mouth. Over time, you want to iterate and improve your product. I put Orville Redenbacher up there because I saw there was some sort of biopic on him at one point that I watched, and it talked about how he did tens of thousands of iterations of trying to find just the right hybrid of corn that would pop right. It's very inspiring to me, and I very much appreciate his efforts. So bow tie and all, well done, Orville. But in the same way, data products are not set and forget. You will have to iterate them. Data will need to be versioned. Systems change, things happen. You need to change out the product and make sure that it's still applicable for your data consumers. So over time, you'd want to look at making sure that you're tracking that downstream lineage so that you know to alert your consumers that something's going to change. You want to integrate with version control, right? So this is why I said it's helpful to have an understanding of what's going on when. Can I go back in time? Can I specifically identify what's happened and changed in my product? And you want to be able to capture those assets for version reproducibility, being able to look back and say, okay, if you were using this before, you should be using that now. Those are things that over time will help your consumers to consume and not be unhappy because you changed the recipe, right? Like, if somebody changed the recipe on Smart Food for me, I'd be very upset. They tried, for what it's worth. They tried doing like a light version, not the same. If you're ever in the States and you try Smart Food, it's the black bag, not the white bag. Just saying. All right. Finally, let your consumers choose how to consume and charge them accordingly, right? So in this case, what we're talking about is where and how are people going to consume your data product? Are they going to the movies and eating the popcorn? Are they microwaving a bag at home? Are they using stovetop popcorn? Whatever works. Same thing here. Are they building a dashboard? Are they implementing this as part of a model? Are they bringing this into their own data stores to be able to consume and mix with their own information? All of those are things that you can provide access to for your consumers so that they aren't prescribed how they need to consume it. Give them access to recipes, so maybe some pre-built starters of how to use this data or how to use this product. Include instructions. So if you have an API endpoint, of course, create some documentation. I know it's like a dirty word, documentation, but it really, really helps. The Stack Overflow folks who were just talking here can back me up on this one. Preferred formats and packaging, right? So yes, I said the black bag, not the white bag, but realistically what we're talking about here is looking at how does this get surfaced to the organizations that are using it? Are you providing an endpoint that's accessible? Are you thinking about how they're going to actually bring this through? Is it an open format? Is it something that requires them to use specific tools or languages to interact with? Ideally, you want to be able to support anyone and everyone using open formats and open tools. It's consumable everywhere. So it brings us back to here, right? We've talked about the ingredients, what goes into a data product. We've talked about the labeling. How do we tag and attribute the information and products that we've built? How are we processing? How are we setting ourselves up to scale when there's more demand? How are we merchandising our products, making sure that people can find them? How are we capturing that life cycle and iterating to improve the quality and value to our customers? And how are we then providing consumption capabilities to them? So of course I have to end with a bunch of slides about Databricks because it's like compulsory. The idea is that you're creating different types of data products, right? You have trusted information, source information that's clean, that has metadata, any type of information, whether it's structured, semi-structured, unstructured. You're capturing changes over time. You're able to evolve those products over time. You've developed derived data products that have powerful insights for your customers with visualizations if you want them to have them, or enabling self-service capabilities to consume. And you have game-changing models, building out predictive, prescriptive, and potentially even cognitive applications based on batch and streaming data, using tools that you like to use, so the equipment in your factory, if you want to go for that, and being able to govern and improve those models over time with reproducibility. So like I said, it kind of have to do this. I'm sorry. Mea culpa. So, for Databricks, this is what we support. It's an open ecosystem built for sharing. We've recently announced our marketplace, which supports not only the data sources, so those kind of source data products, but also the models, the dashboards, all of those derived data products that your teams would want to have. And we've started to roll out our clean rooms in addition to an existing OEM offering that gives a shared space for consumption of data products to your consumers without having to share private information. So I'm happy to take questions. I know this was fairly short. So if you do have a question, put your hand up. That's what I was told, so that they can come around with a microphone.